The key to Solana in 2025 is Firedancer. Most people think this upgrade is just a speed improvement to hit 1 million TPS. But that's not the main point. If Firedancer fails or is severely delayed, Solana is effectively finished. It doesn't matter how many meme coins explode or if an ETF gets approved, the network will lose all fundamental trust. But if it succeeds, we could see $400 or even higher. Today, we're breaking down exactly why Firedancer is Solana's survival and what it means for the price. First, we have to talk about Solana's most fatal Achilles heel, its history of network outages. Throughout 2022 and 2023, Solana stopped working multiple times. Why? The technical term is client centralization. To put it simply, the validators running the network have all been using the exact same single piece of software. This is called a monoculture. If a single critical bug is found in that software, the entire network freezes at the same time. This was the number one reason institutional investors were hesitant to invest in Solana. No matter how fast it is, who would trust a bank that shuts down once a year? In the middle of all this, in November 2022, the FTX disaster struck. Solana was so deeply entangled with FTX and Alameda Research that it was known as Sam Bankman's coin. Everyone said Solana was finished. The SL token price crashed over 90%. Core NFT projects like DeGods even left for Ethereum. But then, a miracle happened. The core developer community didn't scatter. They quietly kept working on stabilizing the network. And from those ashes, Solana's true value began to emerge. This was the start of the Solanaissance. The signal for this revival, ironically, came from Memecoins. Bonk and Dogwifat exploded. But why Solana? Was it just because fees were cheap? Nope. Ethereum Layer 2s also have cheap fees. The key was that Solana was virtually the only Layer 1 that could handle the madness of millions of users flooding in, creating thousands of transactions per second all at once. The memecoin craze gave Solana two gifts. First, it became the ultimate stress test, pushing the network to its absolute limit. Second, it acted as a massive onboarding funnel, pulling millions of new users into the ecosystem who all needed to install a Phantom wallet. But memecoins were just the beginning. If memecoins showed Solana's potential, its future lies in DePIN, which stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks. You have to ask why major projects like Helium, wireless networks, Render, GPU rendering, and HiveMapper, mapping data, chose Solana instead of Ethereum. DePIN requires countless real-world devices, like sensors, hotspots, and dashcams, to exchange data and create microtransactions, meaning tiny transactions multiple times every single second. Ethereum's Layer 2-centric modular structure just isn't suited for processing this kind of high-frequency, low-value activity all on one layer. But Solana can. The performance that was stress-tested by Memecoins turned out to be a perfect match for the massive, real-world business model of DPIN. Let's quickly cover just two intermediate-level reasons why this is possible. First, proof of history, or POH. While other blockchains waste time reaching consensus on, was this transaction first or was that one first? Solana uses a cryptographic clock called proof of history to timestamp every single transaction in advance. Since the order is already determined, consensus becomes extremely fast. Second, C-level. If Ethereum's EVM is a single-thread system, like a one-lane road where cars have to go one by one, Solana's C-level is a parallel processing system. Think of it as an 8-lane highway where unrelated transactions can all be processed at the same time. These two concepts are the core of Solana's speed. Let's quickly cover just two intermediate-level reasons why this is possible. First, proof of history, or POH. While other blockchains waste time reaching consensus on, was this transaction first or was that one first? Solana uses a cryptographic clock called proof of history to timestamp every single transaction in advance. Since the order is already determined, consensus becomes extremely fast. Second, C-level. If Ethereum's EVM is a single-thread system, like a one-lane road where cars have to go one by one, Solana's C-level is a parallel processing system. Think of it as an 8-lane highway where unrelated transactions can all be processed at the same time. These two concepts are the core of Solana's speed. Now, you should understand why Firedancer is Solana's survival. Firedancer is a second client for Solana, built by a completely different company, Jump Crypto, using a completely different programming language, C++. First, if this is successfully implemented, Solana will finally have two engines. If the original client freezes because of a bug, Firedancer can keep the network running. The catastrophic risk of a network outage is finally solved. Second, Firedancer is vastly more efficient than the original client. It has already clocked over 1 million TPS on the testnet. In the long run, this means validators will be able to participate in the network with cheaper hardware than they use today. In other words, it is the key to solving the hardware centralization problem. Of course, Firedancer isn't the whole story. The Solana ecosystem is already incredibly strong. In DeFi, Jupiter has cemented its place as the dominant DEX aggregator. Jito has introduced an innovative liquid staking, or LST, model that returns MEV rewards back to users. The NFT market is growing fiercely as Magic Eden competes with the pro trader platform Tensor. The fuel for all this activity is the SOL token. SOL is used to pay for fees, for staking to secure the network, and as the core reserve currency for the entire DeFi ecosystem, allowing it to capture value. Still, we cannot ignore two huge external variables. The first risk is the US SEC. The SEC has clearly designated SOL as an unregistered security in its lawsuits against companies like Coinbase. This could be a massive shackle on Solana's activity in the US market. On the other hand, the biggest catalyst is a spot ETF. Now that the Ethereum spot ETF has been approved, the market is searching for the next candidate. Along with Ripple's XRP, Solana is one of the most likely contenders. If a Sol spot ETF is approved, it would signal the resolution of regulatory risk and, at the same time, become a green light for enormous institutional capital to flood into the network. Putting all this together, we can build a few price scenarios for 2026 to 2027. This is absolutely not financial advice. First, the bear scenario, under $150. This would happen if critical bugs are found during the Firedancer mainnet deployment, or if the SEC wins decisively in its lawsuits. This is the worst case, where fundamental trust in Solana collapses. Second, the base scenario, between $250 and $350. This is where Firedancer successfully launches and proves network stability, but the US spot ETF approval is continually delayed due to regulatory issues. In this case, organic growth led by DPIN will drive the price. Third, the bull scenario, $400 or more. This is the best case, where Firedancer is working perfectly by 2025, and a US spot ETF gets approved sometime in 2026. The technical risks are solved right as institutional money floods in, which could spark a rally far beyond the previous all-time high. Here's the conclusion. We must stop seeing Solana through the outdated frame of being an Ethereum killer. Ethereum is the clear winner of the store of value and high-value DeFi market, which is built on high security and decentralization. Solana is not trying to steal that market. It is trying to become the exclusive ruler of the market that Ethereum cannot capture due to its technical limitations. This is the low-cost, high-frequency consumer application market. Think DPIN, Social FI, Gaming, and Memecoins. Your investment thesis for Solana must hinge on the success of Firedancer. This upgrade isn't just a simple speed boost. It is the final puzzle piece Solana needs to dominate the consumer market, and it is the key to the network's very survival.